All right, very warm welcome. Game 2 of the January casual tournament in Offworld Trading Company. This one is between Revolting Peasant, Cheesecake, Jim Bob, and Rainbow Ideology. Just having a look around the map. This one looks a little less accommodating than the last one. Black Magic, who's alongside me, but there's some decent spots here.
Now, I would say that this is a first thing to look for is this is a Chinese colony, so that means that glass and silicon are going to be very important. The only thing that's starting up right now is food that you could get an advantage from, but I don't really see any science. There's one scientific spot where you could take advantage of the food, similar to where that robot just dropped. Actually,
yeah,
exactly
Jim Bob.
where Jim Bob dropped.
Yeah, so Jim Bob's seen that and has gone for that. Revolting Peasant goes Scavenger in the north. I guess the only problem for him is going to be aluminum, which he doesn't really have access to, at least not in the immediate vicinity. Rainbow Ideology dropping Expansive in the far south. This isn't as good of a spot, but he's going to be expansive, so he's going to get a lot of claims. He's also going to get the extra claim at HQ2 for founding last. Overall, I think there's some reasonable founds here. I think Cheesecake's, I'm not sure was worth founding first for, and certainly not with any debt. Doesn't seem to have any huge advantage there. Oh, and the level 1 freeze on the carbon. Rainbow Ideology shutting that one down for Revolting Peasant. So that's who he sees as his competition in this game.
Now, taking a look at Rainbow Ideology, I don't necessarily have any particular issues with this found, because, again, it's a glass colony, and so it's going to be important to be close to some of that silicon. The iron is right there, the aluminum isn't quite as far away, and so contrasting Rainbow Ideology's found, say, versus that Scavenger that's going to have to ship everything really far away from the map. They're going to have to use some of their precious claims on ice, as opposed to being able to get, like, say, a high water or something like that. I like Rainbow Ideology's found versus Revolting Peasants at this particular point. Jim Bob's, I'm partial to the scientific found in this particular case, because I think that you could take advantage of the high food price, which is the only high price right now, and really get a good advantage. On top of that, you're not too far away from both the aluminum and the silicon, so out of all of the spots thus far, I like Jim Bob's the best.
Yeah, and a small thing as well to note, Jim Bob is stockpiling food rather than auto-selling it, and that is a really good move, because food is going to climb and no one else is in food. So that's something really subtle that Jim Bob has done, not using that money until he needs it, where it can sort of appreciate in value as the price goes up.
So you've got anybody right here. Everybody is rated at, well, Cheesecake just went to AA, but everybody has the ability, as soon as HQ3 comes around, to make some power money if they really wanted to. And there are 9 geothermals on the map. So the first person to 3, Cheesecake, could really go into the power market and make a good solid power play at this particular point. That being said, they could also contest the food market, but they have no idea that Jim Bob is not auto selling that down.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you just look at the sort of spark line for food, you can see it rising quickly, so you can suspect something there. But yeah, it is something quite subtle. Rainbow Ideology, instead of going into power, going into glass, which seems pretty good to me. It's going to be making a decent profit for him. The Jim Bob gets to 3 as well, and as a scientist, he's in a really good position, I think, getting to 3 nice and early. Aluminum's kind of gone up a little bit, and that's the product of a couple of things. The first one being that Revolting Peasant doesn't have any aluminum at all, and Jim Bob's just working off the 1 low at the moment, so I'd kind of like to see him take that second low just next to his base, maybe to get 3 a second rather than 1 a second, because there's a lot of value in that, I think.
I absolutely agree with that. I think that would be a fantastic thing to do, just to have the 2 low, make 3 a second, and he's actually taking he's just taking the other person's
oh wow,
instead with a mutiny. So that actually
fair
worked
enough.
out. That actually worked out really well. Provided that he can. What I would like to do is I would like to see a mutiny goon actually in that particular case, because he does own a goon. So mutiny it right there, goon it, make sure you have it for that entire point, and normally when you get mutinied, the instinct reaction is, oh, go get a mutiny, I gotta go get it back, even if it's a low tile. That being said, it has not been mutinied back yet, so
the
that
power...
might just be based on the cooldown.
The power situation is kind of interesting because it has just been gooned. So Rainbow Ideology bought a spy and put it straight on Cheesecake's Geotherm, which Cheesecake has now gooned, but he wasn't gooning initially. So I was wondering if he might get that for the duration for that mutiny, but he's not going to. Pirate coming down on the steel, which seems pretty sensible to me. That's Rainbow Ideology looking to get that steel. Oh, and Jim Bob's turned his steel mills off, which I guess is okay, just because he has A, it's being pirated, and B, the power price is up at 200 now, so that steel is losing a considerable amount of money, even though it's scientific, albeit most of that money is debt.
So let's take a look at Rolling Peasant. I was just going to take a look at those claims. So there are a couple of things that I would say that could be improved. The first thing is, you can notice they're on HQ2 right now and have 1300 carbon. When you have a high and a medium, that's plenty where you don't need to take the third claim right there. Even if there are goons on the market, you still don't need to take that until later. What I would have liked to see is two different things there. The first thing is, if you're going to build water, what I would have liked to see is scoot it over next to that edge. That way you could actually rotate it and be a part of this lucrative power market if you needed to, if the price of water crashed out. Just be able to rotate those around. The other thing is, if you had that extra claim, you could have it next to your wind turbine, and you could already be making a bunch of money. So right now, he just does not have enough money to go and buy the glass, because glass is $179, and so founding up here with the additional pain of silicon being at $83 is really handicapped him.
Yeah, it's just not really worked out. And yeah, if he had the water sort of over here instead, next to the wind turbine, like 3 wind turbines right now would do a lot of work, and he'd be making a lot of money from that. He is about to start making power money, but he's only got a surplus of 0.7 a second, so it's really not very much. And it's going to be hard for him to upgrade because of that. Interesting play from Jim Bob, who got rid of his food to put solar panels down instead, which will make him some money by the looks of it. There's a solar flare as well. I guess that was why he did that.
And
I
that's
hadn't
why
spotted
he did
that.
it,
Yeah, so he's making a lot of power money. He's making 2,000 a second off that 10 power surplus, despite the fact that one of his solar panels is still frozen out. So I'd like to see a goon come down onto one of those tiles right now to try and stop that again. There is lots of black market in this game, but Jim Bob off the back of that gets to 4, and he's going to be making a lot of money in HQ4 as well. Rainbow Ideology has been at 4 for a long time though, and his food is making him a lot of money. His steel is what he needs to upgrade, and it's also making him some money. His glass is making him a little bit of money, but again he needs it to upgrade to HQ5, and he's getting enough aluminum, which has climbed by the way to $130, that he can manage to upgrade reasonably well as well. So I think Rainbow Ideology in a really good spot. Jim Bob though is a dark horse in this game. He caught up with that power play, and he might be in a good situation going forward.
Now in terms of Jim Bob at the moment, I'm assuming he's going to be rushing teleportation so that he can stop getting that glass mutinied. I don't know if I particularly like the way that he has configured his base here in terms of a very long, narrow portion here. The reason being, when you go to rotate them later, sure, you've prevented the steel from being pirated, but all you have to do is just rush teleportation, and you don't have to worry about pirates anymore. The other thing is the aluminum. The aluminum is $156 a second, and that is something that you could do directly next to your base. So what I would have liked to see is 2, maybe even a 3rd tile of aluminum, just to take advantage of this, because there are certain people that are just completely skipping over aluminum at this point, or just have 1 low. So Cheesecake, every time Cheesecake upgrades, no aluminum. So now those every time Cheesecake upgrades, that's, what is that, 100? That is 160 aluminum in order to get to HQ5 that you could be benefiting from. That's going to take him forever to do. So I would have rather seen that.
Yeah.
That being said, Cheesecake does have that aluminum tile right next to your base. You could steal it back again, and he's in C/D debt, so you could be able to keep that for a long period of time.
Yeah, interesting play from Jim Bob. He went for the nanotech before anything else, before teleportation, before slant drilling, and that's kind of interesting, and that's going to get him a lot of money because he's going to get rid of these solar panels quite soon. So I think he's going to go back into, and he does delete all of them, in fact, all 4 of them. So he's going to get 400 silicon and 80 aluminum from that, which is actually a lot of money for him. That's what is that? That's somewhere close to $40,000 he got from that, just from that nanotech play alone. Now going back into food, which he's going to be auto-selling down. Rainbow Ideology also in that market too. It's very lucrative right now, but Rainbow Ideology does get to 5 ahead of everyone else, and as an expansive player, that's going to be really difficult for everyone else to deal with.
And another thing that's going to be difficult for other people to deal with is the fact that he is making $304 per second on his 2 pleasure domes, 152 a second, and there are some tiles out there that are going to make you that much money, but there aren't very many. So even if you're a scientist and you're trying to take advantage of that high food price, you can't get better tiles like that. So even in a 4-player game, having the pleasure dome, much less 2 pleasure domes, can be really good, especially if he goes into virtual reality, which I'm hoping he's going to rush.
Yep, I would think that he will get that probably as soon as he's finished carbon scrubbing. Does he? Yeah, and he has it queued up, in fact, along with perpetual motion as well, which again will make those pleasure domes even more efficient, even though its overall value isn't that high right now. Jim Bob gets to 5, and the fact that he is second to 5 means that he's in quite a good situation, I think, in this game as well, albeit some way behind Rainbow Ideology. That food price is crashing a little bit. So he's going to be not going to be making quite so much money on those. He's claimed a tile next to his base. I wonder what he's going to do with that.
And Jim Bob is not noticing that he's being bought into, and just based on cooldowns, he could actually be dead. That's very close.
He doesn't have money either. He doesn't have money either, does he?
Well, he has money, but you would have to. He has money via nanotech if he decides to delete some of these things. Now, unfortunately, in order to do that, he really has to delete his farms right now in order to be able to do it. That's where a lot of his money is because of that high glass price.
Yeah, or his optimization center or something like that. But doing that is really painful. It's been frozen out as well.
It also keeps you in the game.
Yeah, it does.
And he's currently building those reactors, and I think that was a mistake. I think he's going to end up falling right here. That was a fantastic move by Rainbow.
Yeah, well played by him.
Go after the very lucrative scientist.
So
now,
Rainbow just waiting for the money. He has 100 on him, but again, like some of that money's in patents. He doesn't quite have the cash. Now he has the cash. He finishes that one off. So Jim Bob falls, and I think that was honestly the only real competition for Rainbow Ideology in this game. Cheesecake is very far behind as a robot in sea levels of debt, and Revolting Peasant is still recovering from that really difficult start that he had. Rainbow Ideology just has so many advantages. He has some patents, he has the subsidiary, he has the 2 pleasure domes, he has the optimization center, which he's just beginning to use now. So I think it's going to be really difficult for anyone else in this game to do anything about Rainbow Ideology.
Now, at this particular point, if you're looking at who to buy next, you could take a look at Cheesecake is in C debt at the moment and has a bunch of it's an HQ5, has a bunch of the claims right near your base. I would almost think about going for Cheesecake as a really quick person to pick off. That being said, though, you have to go, you have the other player is a scavenger, which could make your life pretty miserable with a whole lot of very cheap black market. That being said, I still think I would take Cheesecake. It's interesting, just in terms of a layout for Cheesecake. There was the high silicon, which is really far away. So let's take a look at this. So silicon was a very good market to get into, but you're talking about almost 1 full power per second in order to do that, and that's part of the reason why the power market got up as high as it did, and the other portion is that Cheesecake wasn't very heavy into power. I think now they have 2 geotherms. I'm not sure that they had 2 geotherms for a while. Instead of taking that really far silicon, there's a low silicon rate there, and in actuality you might end up getting just as much silicon from that, because it'll ship and it has a whole lot less distance. And of course, I'm not going to sit here and do the math for it, but I'm pretty certain that it's going to be as good, if not better, considering
the debt that you take on.
Considering the debt, yes.
So Rainbow Ideology, I'm going to call him Rainbow because that's a hard word to say.
That's a lot quicker.
He's gone into an off-world. He's gooned it as well. So another big advantage for him. He's also hacking electronics. He has a bunch of those bought up. And the shortage now is courtesy of a hack, so he's going to make a lot of money from that too. He's got almost $200,000, in fact more than now than $200,000 in the bank, and so pretty much whoever he decides is going to die in this game is going to die. Instead he's going to buy his own stock up. Kind of question that a little bit. I don't think anyone else has the potential to go into him, albeit, I mean, it's still the safe play, and you still have those advantages for the late game. You're expansive, you've got a bunch of patents, you've got the pleasure domes, you've got the off-world building. Pretty much whatever he decides to do at this point, he's going to win the game.
I'm going to say at this particular point, I'm okay with buying the 3rd stock, because typically you can get those other 2. I don't like buying the 4th or the 5th stock at this particular point, because I would rather just go in and finish, say, Cheesecake, for instance, who's in serious debt issues, and maybe potentially try to keep Cheesecake into all the debt.
Yeah.
I would also like to point out that in terms of a subsidiary, not owning all of Jim Bob and still making about 890 a second, 855 give or take, that's fantastic, because that's per second. So if you compare that to an off-world,
well, it basically is an off-world, isn't it?
It's like having 2 off-worlds right now.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Speaking of that, though, Rainbow is going for a 2nd off-world, which I think is a little bit greedy at this particular point.
Yeah, I mean, at this point we're only really talking about sort of fine margins. Rainbow has won this game pretty much whatever he does, as we both have said.
That's true.
But yeah, sort of he definitely just doesn't need that 2nd off-world to finish this game, put it that way.
Well, here's another thing that I want to point out. If you look at the total cost for an off-world for him, it's almost 100. It's almost 100K.
Yeah, it is.
So that's something where instead of building that 2nd off-world, sure, absolutely, it's going to make you some money. But A, is the game going to last that long?
Yeah.
I mean, launches are 42K, so it'll pay for it in 2 launches. But honestly, it would be more important to secure, say, the open stock from Cheesecake and Revolting Peasant. I'd rather just see the 100K going into, that's 5 stocks of Cheesecake, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. It really doesn't, it really isn't going to pay for itself before the end of the game. It needs probably 3 launches to pay for itself.
And then the other thing to think about is all of the revenue that you could, that you have for there, you can buy into Cheesecake, it raises your stock price. You can buy the other, I would also buy the 5 into Revolting Peasant, honestly, because you never know who's going to attack you. And then finish whichever one off that attacks you. The other thing is that in this particular case, you could be using some of the money to feed into your hacker array.
Yeah, you could. I mean, all of those things. I mean, yeah, like we said. I mean, there's really no way for Rainbow to lose at this point. But yeah, in terms of optimizing, yeah, absolutely. This is how you close games out completely. And again, buying these 4 stock into Jim Bob, I mean, yes, it's making you a whole bunch of money a second, but do you need that money to finish the game? I don't think you do. I think pretty much at any point you can choose to end it. And he's going to get the buy on Cheesecake probably, maybe as soon as these launches finish.
If he's smart, he would not go finish the buy on Cheesecake. At this particular point, what I would do is I would be buying into Revolting Peasant. So I let Cheesecake buy into me, and finish buying the 5 stock before you buy them, because that way you sell out of your own stock and you've essentially ended the game because you can buy a Revolting Peasant. So at this point, if you're in Rainbow's scenario, just buy the 5 stock for Revolting Peasant. Just ignore the fact that Cheesecake buys into you. It's actually great that Cheesecake is buying into you. You want your opponents buying into you, and then just buy whichever one has the 5, more of the 5.
Yeah, gives you free stock. Absolutely.
He's essentially gives you free money to end the game.
He's got $400,000 worth of glass right now that he's still stockpiling and that he's hacking again. So yeah, I'm gonna. I don't know what his plan is exactly. Is he gonna try and buy them both out at the same time? I don't know. Pretty much whatever he does, though, it's a victory lap at this point.
In terms of shortening the game, the answer would be that you don't want to let Revolting Peasant get 5 of those shares of their own to extend the game a little bit long. Just like that, so Revolting Peasant is buying into himself, and it just took you that much longer in order to complete everything. So instead of when you look at this, this is an opportunity, and we have a tiebreaker, which is time, of course. So if you're looking for the quickest, optimal way to finish it, that's where you buy those open stock first.
Yeah,
so.
And indeed, Revolting Peasant did take 3 of his own stock before Rainbow went into him. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit longer now for him to finish this one. EMP comes down. It's much too little, much too late at this point, though. So let's talk a little bit about this game sort of as a whole, and I think Rainbow Ideology, I mean, you mentioned at the start that you liked this expansive, and I think when you get an expansive like this, there wasn't anything that sort of screamed to me, this is an amazing found. So when you're in that situation, if you found last, which probably you should do at that point, then going expansive just somewhere where you've got reasonable access to everything is often a strong play, because you get those claims early, you're not in any debt, you get those claims early, and no one else has got a big enough advantage really to overcome that later on in the game.
The other thing about this particular found was the fact that it was a glass colony, and the other people didn't have fantastic access to a lot of silicon, particularly Revolting Peasant, and not a lot of aluminum was taken, and so you could take these close resources and be able to get in those markets and make a bunch of money early. And he was the first person to get to HQ5, and if the expansive gets to HQ5 first, everybody else is in trouble.
Yep, he did that. He had the 2 pleasure domes down as he did that as well. He was just very far ahead. The only player really anywhere near him was Jim Bob at any point in the game, and as soon as Jim Bob got bought out, Rainbow had put this one on the board, I think. Let's just take a little bit of